Hi, welcome to another Friday with me on my vlog, Jaspreet Garg, Life Body Coach. I don't know if it's noticeable in my tone, the way I'm speaking, or maybe the way I look. There's definitely a slower, more kind of subdued energy within me right now. And I guess what I want to share around that is this week has been a bit of a transition week for me, moving from the old into the new. And I was talking to somebody, a good friend of mine yesterday, and as I was talking to her, she was talking about this whole moving from where you are to where you're going. And the wisdom that came through me for her is probably what I feel I need to listen more to. And I'm feeling the urge to want to share that with anyone out there that's also experiencing a bit of that transition of maybe someone you used to be last year, or a job that you used to do last year, an identity that you used to hold last year, and now you're finding yourself gradually shifting to something else, and maybe that something else isn't quite defined yet. And so you're in this space between the old and the new, and noticing how you internally feel about that space that you're finding yourself in. So this week I slowed down a lot. I decided to take space for this transition that I'm going through. Because I think I've learnt to do this a lot more over the years that I've been on my own journey of self-exploration. And when I think back to how I used to behave, say I'm moving from one job to another, as we often do, if you're in that traditional kind of setup, having a job, generally speaking 9 to 5, when something else comes along and you end up going from the old to the new, sometimes overnight. And sometimes that's not out of choice. But I think sometimes we tell ourselves that we don't have that choice, when actually that choice is always available. There is something about allowing the rest of yourself, like everything about yourself and beyond, you know, like I don't know if the listeners out there share similar views around this, but I have a belief that we're more than just what our bodies are, and you know, there's this energy field around us, our aura. So when you're moving from A to B, whatever that is, and I'm just using the job as an example, your mind knows that it needs to go from A to B, and you know, sometimes it's like, just got to do it, got to make that happen. External pressures, you know, the organisation expects you to step in to B now and maybe still juggle A, you know. And that's, you know, your mind. Your mind knows that. Your body, on the other hand, it doesn't understand that. At least that's the kind of sense I get from having experienced my own transitions. And even on a day-to-day basis, something that comes to mind actually is when I used to head down for a yoga class. And I used to love this kind of expression that a few teachers have shared in the past, which is, as you settle down on your mat, say you're lying down on your back, and the invitation that they give to allow your body to arrive. And I used to just, something used to come over me when I used to hear that. Something really like resonated deep inside. And I guess from, you know, that, my own experience, so that's the day-to-day, you know, and also just generally the transitions that we face in life, there is a need to create space from going in that, you know, old identity that you used to be, or whatever it is, to the new. You know, there's always this space in between. And I felt that quite a lot this week. And I think a few years back, I might have really not understood, you know, everything that I'm saying right now just wouldn't have made any, I would have been applying my mind a lot to this and being like, wow, that's all well and great, but in, you know, the real world, that's not possible. However, having created more space in my life and enabling myself to be able to take that time and that space, and not, I think this week what I noticed was that I didn't feel guilty for it, because I think that's the other thing that has been a barrier for me sometimes, to allow myself some space, you know, to be able to just to breathe, probably. And yeah, not from a headspace place, you know, not kind of, well, I need to gear myself up for the next thing, more from a bodily energy, from an energetic level as well. Because I think the other thing I noticed this week was I felt tired, and I still do. There's a tiredness around going from where I was before to where I am now. And I wouldn't have granted myself that space many years ago, and I wouldn't have understood that I really needed it. But I'm coming to understand a lot more about what my needs are as a human being, and actually they're not unique to me necessarily. And so there might be people out there listening to this that completely hear what I'm saying and yeah, I've wanted to do that, you know. And I'm not talking about taking yourself away somewhere, although that's, you know, always a nice little treat to do if you can. And obviously during these times it's been tricky to travel. But when I'm talking about creating this space, it's just to do whatever your body desires. When you ask yourself that question, what is it that I want right now? Allowing whatever that is to bubble up and to let that happen and make space for that. And it doesn't have to be, you know, something that you can feel proud of. like an achievement of some kind, like, oh yeah, today I took some time out for myself and I painted. Not that painting isn't a lovely thing to do and a mindful thing to do, but when you ask yourself that question, the brain will want to come up with an answer like that, which makes you feel like your time has been spent in a worthwhile way. But I'm just talking about things like, for instance, some of the things that I've been doing this week to kind of make space for myself is sleep. I've been sleeping longer. I've also been watching a few Netflix shows, and I've taken myself on a walk. And whilst I was out on this walk, I had this deep desire to ask this woman who was walking a dog a few questions about the dog, because I'm looking to get one, hopefully. So yeah, and it is just the smaller things in life, nothing that has to be grand and something for you to show everyone and be like, oh, look what I've achieved this week. Normally this whole taking space is just, it's just activities, and it's not that it's just, but it's activities that don't mean anything to anyone else except you. When I was talking to that friend yesterday, this whole kind of moving on to the next thing, because once, for instance, if you're, you've chock-a-block at work, for instance, and you got meetings in the diary one after the other, but in maybe a few weeks' time things are going to start easing up for whatever reason. Often it's like, oh, okay, then I'll have brain space to think about X, Y, and Z, and I can crack on with those activities. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's the point between doing whatever you've got to get through right now, and then before you venture into that next phase, because no one's denying that you've got the ability to deliver whatever the next thing is. Those next things will get done, but you can either do it from a place of, I haven't quite arrived, but because I know the pressures are there and I need to get on with those things, or you can give yourself permission to just be, and whatever that is. Like I said, it doesn't have to be an impressive activity. It can just be whatever brings you some level of rest. And what I kind of felt whilst I was doing these things during the week was a bit of kind of hibernation energy going on, like feeling like I just want to close off and just be more within myself. And what I also noticed with that energy came less of the talking side of things, not really wanting to engage in lengthy conversations, and just more of the inward turning, but not in a I'm on a quest here. I'm just not, the focus isn't out there, it's more here, more in the body. So I found myself like that. And the other thing it could be is that this time of the year, I also mentioned this to someone this week, all the animals out there are hibernating. So we are, even though, us humans have created all this around us, we are very much linked to the environment and the habitat that we live in. All our energy sources are linked, and whatever is going on out there in the natural world, why wouldn't we feel those things internally as well? We've created structures and things in life to not honour those things. So another one of my invitations is to allow yourself to feel hibernation energy, however that looks and feels to you. Everything out there, nature-wise, is doing it, if you're in England. And I'm sure there are other countries where winter is happening. So if everything else is doing it out there, why are we then pushing ourselves? And that may then throw up, barriers for you where it's like, well, I can't, It's all right for you exploring, coaching and doing what you want to do, not holding down a full-time job, but the rest of us folk out here have all we've got this X, Y and Z to do in our lives, and I get it. However, we always have a choice, and I'm not saying to transform your lives completely, but to get that kind of hibernation energy happening in some shape or form in your everyday. And that could just be wrapping up in your duvet and just allowing yourself to just rest. And it could just be having a nice warm cup of tea first thing in the morning in your bed. Or it could be a nice wrapped up winter walk where you're listening into the sounds of nature, not your headphones with beautiful music on it. But in the meantime, you're missing out on all that sound that's out there in nature. So it could be whatever you want it to be, and these are just suggestions. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, and maybe you're at that place too, and let's meet at that place with some of these ideas that I've shared. I hope that's been of some use, and obviously you know where I am if you want to talk some more about this hibernation energy and what you could be doing or not doing during these times. And I guess I'll see you next week for another installment of this. So thank you for joining me. Give me a big thumbs up if you're enjoying some of these riffs and shares that I have. And I'll check you out next week.